Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
May we have a volunteer to lead us in a word of prayer?
Let's humble ourselves and pray. King of glory, I want to thank you for this day. Thank you that you have gathered in this lesson. King of glory, as we are going to start learning, may you please enable us to understand everything that teacher is going to teach us and enable us to remember in case of the exams that we may sit for at school. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so last week we covered gaseous exchange, and so today we shall be still continuing with that. So by the end of our lesson, we should be able to identify the adaptations of gaseous exchange surfaces, and we should be able to understand the structure of the human respiratory system. Okay? Okay, so we shall start by reminding ourselves something very small. In our previous lesson, we discussed how gaseous exchange occurs. Is there anyone who can tell us how gaseous exchange occurs? By what means? I'm going to repeat my question. So the question is, by what means does gaseous exchange occur? Do you have any suggestions? Okay, so I've noticed most of us have replied in the chat that the answer is by diffusion. Yes, gaseous exchange occurs by diffusion. So gaseous exchange occurs across respiratory surfaces. This simply means that diffusion also occurs across respiratory surfaces. Therefore, any factor that we know that affects the rate of diffusion affects the rate of gaseous exchange. Are we together? So allow me to ask you, where does gaseous exchange occur in the humans? What is that special respiratory surface that we have so that we can have gaseous exchange occur? Judith, could you unmute and give us an answer?
Teacher, I think it occurs in the lungs, in the air sacs.
Okay. In the lungs, in the air sacs. I have got many of you in the chat saying in the lungs. Okay, so gaseous exchange in the humans occurs in the lungs. May we have a few people tell us where gaseous exchange occurs in the fish? Doreen, would you like to unmute?
In the gills.
Okay, in the gills is a very correct answer. So even those who have raised it in the chat, you're very correct. So for this lesson, we are going to look at what makes the gills able to carry out gaseous exchange, or what makes the lungs able to carry out gaseous exchange. So we shall start with the gills, okay? So for the gills, we are going to watch a very small video showing us the structure of the gills and how what makes them able to carry out gaseous exchange. So in this video, I expect you to observe, and then we shall be answering a few questions after the video. Is that okay? So the video does not have sound to it, so we won't expect to hear any audio. So what we are seeing is the structure of the gills and the water that enters the gills. The video is now showing us the blood vessels that enter further into the gill filaments, okay? So I'm going to play that again one more time, and then you tell me what you notice about the gills that makes them suitable to carry out gaseous exchange. Okay, so in our video, we have seen the structure of the gills, and I would like us to simply suggest a few characteristics of the gills that we've been able to observe. What do you see about the gills? Phoebe?
The gills are many in number.
That is true. How do you think? Okay, we shall start with the characteristics. Emanuela? Judith? Judith?
The gills have very many blood vessels throughout the gill filaments, which improves circulation.
Okay, that's true. Henry, you had your hand up. Do you still have an answer for us? Okay, so Isaac in the chat says they have thin airs. They have thin walls for easy diffusion, which is true. Happy says the gills have many blood vessels connected to them. That is very true. Do we have any other suggestions? Israel?
The gills have a highly folded surface area to increase surface area.
Okay, I'm going to request you to correct that. Could you repeat that again? Replacing the first surface area with the word gills. Okay, first repeat your answer.
Gills have a highly folded surface area. No, gills have a highly folded surface to increase surface area.
Okay, that's better. Adrian?
The gills They are streamlined to allow water pass through and they pick oxygen.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any more suggestions? Any other suggestions? For the answer of streamlined, the gills are not particularly streamlined, okay? I want to first put clarity on that. There are other functions, there are other systems inside the fish that are able to force the water to pass through the gills, but we must note that they are not streamlined. If you look at them, they have facing different directions and something like that, okay? And they do not grow smaller towards the end or anything in the shape of a streamlined body. Are we together at that point? Okay, so we must note that the gills we have just observed are very branched and that increases the surface area, okay? Now, we may not observe that the gills are moist, but we must know that they are moist. That's how gaseous exchange is able to occur, okay? They are thin-walled, has been mentioned, which is very good. And we've also mentioned that they have many blood capillaries to transport the oxygen away and the carbon dioxide too. So since we have observed the gills, we're now going to continue on to the lungs, okay? Which is what we have in our bodies. We are still going to watch a small clip about the lungs, but when I asked you where gaseous exchange in humans occurs, we said that one of us gave an answer of it occurs in the lungs, in the air sacs. But when we look at this image, we notice there are no air sacs. Is that true? So we are going to watch a short video or animation in the lungs, and you're going to tell me what you notice about the lungs that that makes it able to carry out gaseous exchange, okay? Okay, so we are going to be telling us what we notice about the lungs that enables them to carry out gaseous exchange. Kaylee has her hand up.
Good afternoon, teacher.
Good afternoon, Kaylee.
I'm saying that there are many in number and they have a number of blood vessels.
Kaylee, what are many in number?
The air sacs.
Okay, good. So when you're stating, you say their air sacs are many in number. Okay? You don't say they
Yeah.
are many.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Judith?
Teacher, that there's a good blood supply in the lungs,
Blood supply?
seen
Anything
by the
else?
big blood vessels.
Okay.
And I think They are thin-walled.
You think they are thin-walled? That's okay. Do we have any other suggestions? The person using the account named help, do you have a suggestion? Okay, Jeremy in the chat has said they are moist. And so I'm going to play this video one more time so that we notice the characteristics that our colleagues have said. They've said that there are many in the air sacs are many in number. The air sacs are supplied have a very good blood supply, okay? And they've also told us that the air sacs are thin-walled, okay? Okay, so now that we've seen the lungs and the gills, we are going to continue on so that now from what we have observed, the gills are a very good respiratory surface. The lungs are also a good respiratory surface. So what similarities have you seen in these two that make them good respiratory surfaces? Therefore, what are the adaptations of good respiratory surfaces? Yes, Judith?
Teacher, I think good respiratory surfaces should have a good blood supply, just like the lungs and the gills. Yes, they have very
Okay.
many blood vessels. And they should also be...
Judith, may we please have one answer per participant so that we allow many of the participants to continue. Irina?
According to me, a good respiratory surface, they must be many in number or numerous.
Irina, what must be many in number?
Like those respiratory surfaces.
Okay. Like?
For example, like in humans, we look at the alveoli, they are numerous or many in number. And for the fish, for them, the gills, they are many.
Okay, the gills are many, even the gill filaments. Nora?
They are moist.
Okay, that is very true. Do we have any other suggestion? Happy says they have a good connection of blood vessels for easy gaseous exchange, which is very okay. Okay, Happy also says the alveoli are many and they are well ventilated. That is also very true. Hasna says I'm going to assume in this case is there is good respiratory surfaces. They have a thin membrane for easy diffusion. Hezron, is there any answer you would like to give?
The adaptations of good respiratory surfaces is that the alveoli must have moist walls in order for gases to dissolve in the moisture, helping them to pass across the gas exchange surface.
Okay, that's very okay. Josiah in the chat says they have moist holes for gases to dissolve in moisture, helping. Josiah, I'm going to kindly request you not to use the word helping in biology. Okay? So when we are setting our adaptations, let's try to use the words to avoid using the words helping, because these things are able to do them. Okay? So state your answer in a way that it does not contain that word. Try as much as possible to avoid it. Jordan, is there anything you'd like to say?
Why are we not allowed to use help?
Okay. So, Jordan, if I'm to help you with something, let me say, I help you do your work. Okay?
Mm,
In this case, who is doing the work?
You.
Okay. When we are talking about respiratory surfaces and the different structures in biology, we notice that they do their work themselves, right? Right?
Yeah.
Yes, so they are not being helped to do the work.
Okay.
That is why we cannot use the word helping. They are doing the work themselves, okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So the adaptations of the good respiratory surfaces, we shall conclude by saying, 1, they are usually folded or branched to provide a large surface area to enable the rapid diffusion of gases. They are kept moist to dissolve gases and allow easy diffusion, okay? Good respiratory surfaces are thin-walled to reduce the distance over which diffusion occurs, or what you may call the diffusion distance, okay? Then they have very many blood capillaries to transport oxygen and carbon dioxide to and from respiring tissues, therefore maintaining a high concentration gradient. Now, blood capillaries is what we have been calling blood vessels, so you use whichever word you're comfortable with. Don't tie yourself to a particular word. Is that okay? Then lastly, good respiratory surfaces are well ventilated to supply oxygen from the atmosphere to the respiratory surface and remove carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Okay? So I'm going to allow you 2 minutes to summarize, to shortly summarize what I have displayed, and then we continue on to our next learning outcome. Okay, so I have noticed many of you have finished, so you're going to allow me to continue until our next learning outcome, okay? So our next learning outcome, as we had said, was that we are going to understand the structure of the human respiratory system. So for this learning outcome, we should be able, by the time I finish, you should be able to know the parts of the human respiratory system and their different functions, okay? So I'll start you off with a video telling you about the different parts and their functions. I'm going to ask you to pay very close attention because this is what we are going to be discussing for the rest of our lesson.
The function of the respiratory system is to transport air into the lungs and to diffuse oxygen into the bloodstream and carbon dioxide out. It is separated into the upper and lower respiratory tracts. Air enters the upper respiratory tract through the mouth or nose and nasal cavity, where it is filtered, warmed, and moistened. Next, it passes into the pharynx and then into the larynx, which is known as the voice box. From here, the air passes down into the trachea, also known as the windpipe. The inner membrane of the trachea is covered in tiny hair cells called cilia, which catch particles of dust which are removed through coughing. The trachea is surrounded by 15 to 20 C-shaped rings of cartilage at the front and side, which help protect it and keep it open. The trachea divides into two smaller tubes called bronchi, which pass air into the left and right lungs. Once inside the lung, the bronchi split several ways, forming tertiary bronchi. These continue to divide, forming bronchioles, which are narrow tubes less than 1 millimeter in diameter. Eventually, air enters alveolar sacs and alveoli, where gaseous exchange takes place.
Okay, so that marks the end of our video. I will play it again so that you now pay close attention because this is what we are discussing for the rest of our lesson. Is that okay?
The function of the respiratory system is to transport air into the lungs and to diffuse oxygen into the bloodstream and carbon dioxide out. It is separated into the upper and lower respiratory tracts. Air enters the upper respiratory tract through the mouth or nose and nasal cavity, where it is filtered, warmed, and moistened. Next, it passes into the pharynx and then into the larynx, which is known as the voice box. From here, the air passes down into the trachea, also known as the windpipe. The inner membrane of the trachea is covered in tiny hair cells called cilia, which catch particles of dust which are removed through coughing. The trachea is surrounded by 15 to 20 C-shaped rings of cartilage at the front and side, which help protect it and keep it open. The trachea divides into two smaller tubes called bronchi, which pass air into the left and right lungs. Once inside the lung, the bronchi split several ways, forming tertiary bronchi. These continue to divide, forming bronchioles, which are narrow tubes less than 1 millimeter in diameter. Eventually, air enters alveolar sacs and alveoli, where gaseous exchange takes place.
Okay, so after watching our video, allow me to ask her to continue on to the functions of the different parts of our respiratory tract. One of the parts we were able to see was the nose. So from the video or from your knowledge, may we please share as a class what the function of the nose is? Yes, Happy?
Madam, as we heard from the video, saying that the nose, its main function is to take in air to the lungs, passing through is it the trachea or the larynx, something like that.
Okay. Marian, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think the nose is used to let in air and take it through the pharynx.
Okay, that's very correct. Hezron?
For me, I say the nose takes in air and also brings out air.
Okay. All your answers are very correct. So, we must note that the nose is the point where the air enters and leaves the respiratory system and surface, okay, which we have seen in our video. Although there are points when we say my nose is blocked and so we use our mouth to let in air and out. However, that has its disadvantages. As we can see that the nose is lined with hairs which trap dust and other foreign materials that may come along in the air. Our mouth does not have that. So when you breathe through your mouth, you take in that dust and the other foreign materials that could have been trapped in the nose. Okay? So the nose is the point where the air enters and leaves the respiratory surface. So we shall continue on to our next part, which we saw was the pharynx. Is there anyone who can tell us what the pharynx is or where it is located or what its use is? Any suggestions? Emanuela?
I just wanted to say that the pharynx is the same as the voice box.
Okay. Kaylee? Kaylee?
For me, I think that the pharynx moistens air.
Okay. So, the pharynx, Israel?
The pharynx routes air coming in your nose and mouth down to the larynx, which in turn moves air to your trachea and lungs.
Okay, that's very correct. So, we are summarizing that the pharynx is at the back of the mouth where the nasal cavity and the mouth cavity join, okay? This is the only reason why the mouth can also take in air for you to respire, okay? It's because the nasal cavity and the mouth cavity meet at the pharynx. So it is at the pharynx that the oesophagus, we know that when we chew our food and we swallow, it goes through the oesophagus into the digestive system. So it's at this point where the oesophagus and the trachea meet, okay? Now from the pharynx, we have the larynx. Is there anything to remember about the larynx? The pharynx is also known as the vocal cord, okay? Any suggestions? Emanuela?
Okay, madam.
Yes, please.
According to the video, I thought the larynx came before the pharynx, where they say that the pharynx was the same as the vocal cord, the voice box.
Okay. The pharynx does not come before the larynx. They are at about the same point, but the pharynx comes before the larynx. Israel?
To me, the larynx protects the lower respiratory tract from aspirating food into the trachea while breathing.
That's correct. Happy? Happy?
Madam,
Yes, please.
to me, I was just adding on that it helps to reduce the flow of air entering the lungs.
Okay. So we are going to conclude that the larynx is the top of the trachea, right? It contains the vocal cords, or what we said might be the pharynx, okay? Now, it's at this point where we have the flap of cartilage known as the epiglottis that prevents dust, food, all those other things from entering the trachea, okay? This is why you're able to swallow your food and then still continue to breathe, because if your food entered the trachea, you'd not be able to breathe, as it would block the air pathway, okay? We shall continue on to the trachea. Is there anyone who would like to tell us its function? Emanuela?
The trachea has cilia that helps to trap dust that might have moved with the air entering into the lungs.
Okay, that's true. Hezron?
The trachea allows the passage of inspired and expired air into and out of the lung.
Okay. Kaylee?
He said my answer. I had that answer.
Okay, you repeat your answer that he said. Kaylee?
The trachea allows passage of inspired and expired air into and out of the lung.
Okay. So we noticed that the trachea has rings of cartilage on it, right? That enable it to stay standing and not to close up, because if it did not have that cartilage, it would close up and therefore respiration would not, gaseous exchange would not be able to occur. There would be no passage for air to the lungs, okay? It is. So the trachea has a few adaptations, which Emanuela happened to state one of them for us. Are there any other adaptations the rest of us could have noticed about it? Something that makes it unique, that makes it able to perform its functions? Israel? Marianne?
It has cilia that is used to trap dust.
Okay. Happy?
It's made up of cartilage that helps it to carry out its function.
Okay. Judith?
The trachea also has mucus, which helps it to trap foreign bodies like dust.
Okay. Kaylee?
Teacher, for me, I am giving another function.
Mm-hmm.
It regulates the temperature of air passing into the lungs.
How does the trachea do that, Kaylee?
I think because of the mucus.
Okay. So, one of the Kaylee has added us another use for the trachea. It regulates the temperature of the air that is coming into the lungs. And some of the adaptations, we've discussed the adaptations of the trachea, and we've said that it is hollow, so it readily allows gases to pass through it, okay? The trachea is kept open by rings of cartilage, okay? That is how it is able to let the gases go through it all the time. It secretes mucus, which traps dust particles. And lastly, it has cilia that beat to move the mucus and the dust up to the larynx so that you can be able to put them out of your bodies because they cannot stay there and accumulate all the time, okay? So we shall continue on to our next part, which is the bronchus, or when there are more than one, what we call the bronchi, okay? Is there anything any of you would like to say about the bronchi? Nora?
I think the bronchi transports air to the two sides of the lungs.
That's true. Kaylin?
The bronchi carries air into the lungs.
That's true. Israel?
I think the bronchi warm, moisturize, and clean the inhaled air before distributing it to the lungs gas exchanging zone.
And how do you think they are able to do that? Israel? Okay, Israel doesn't seem to want to answer my question. Anyways, we must note that there are two bronchi inside our bodies, and these branch from the trachea, okay? So they have rings of cartilage which keep them permanently open, just like we saw with the trachea, okay? Now, each bronchus leads to one lung, and it divides into a fine mass of tubules called the bronchioles, okay? So we notice that we have the trachea, it divides into the two bronchi. Now the bronchi further divide into the bronchioles, okay? So with that being said, I shall continue on to our next part, which shall be the bronchioles. Is there anything you'd like to say about them? Kaylee?
The bronchioles transport air to the air sacs.
That's true. Israel?
They deliver air to a diffuse network of around 300 million alveoli in the lungs.
That's correct. Do we have any suggestions? Haley?
Bronchioles help to warm, clean, and moisturize air entering into the lungs.
Haley, how do the bronchioles do that? Okay, so
I think they contain cilia and mucus.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we must note that the bronchioles are just a smaller size of the bronchi, but for them they do not have the rings of cartilage, okay? Is that okay? So I do not think the bronchioles have alveoli or cilia. Sorry, I don't think they have cilia in them that can be able to moisturize and filter the air that goes to the lungs, right? Frida, is there something you'd like to say?
Yeah, for me, madam, I think that these bronchioles helps regulate airflow because the smooth muscle layer in them helps to control the bronchioles diameter, regulating airflow to the alveoli.
Okay, that's true. Now, unlike the bronchi, the bronchioles can collapse, okay? They can, when air is taken out from them, they can close up and open up, okay? Unlike the bronchus and the trachea, as we have seen, they are designed that way, and that is how they are able to carry out gaseous exchange, or they enable our lungs to carry out gaseous exchange. So the last part of the respiratory tract that we shall be looking at today is the alveoli. What do you think are the functions of the alveoli? And what do we know about them? What is so important about these air sacs? Haley? Kaylee? Eva?
Eva, tewakyusiza yigwe.
Eva?
What we know about the alveoli is that they are used for gaseous exchange.
Okay, that's true. Nora? Hezron?
The air sacs serve to increase respiratory efficiency by providing a large surface area for gas exchange.
That's true. Happy?
Madam, mine is simple. They are the ones that are responsible for the body's exchange fully.
Happy, may you please repeat your answer?
I was just saying that they are the ones responsible for the body's gaseous exchange fully.
Okay. Judith? Irina?
According to me, the alveoli, that's where the diffusion of gases inside the bloodstreams takes place.
Okay. Frida?
Yeah, for me, madam, I think this alveoli help, these alveoli enable in oxygen diffusion where inhalation is carried out, and also during during exhalation of carbon dioxide.
No, that's very correct. Okay. So alveoli are our respiratory surface. So this is the actual site where gaseous exchange in the lungs takes place. So we say that we breathe using our lungs, but the actual gaseous exchange in our lungs takes place in the alveoli, or what you may call the air sacs. So these are very many in number, or what you may call numerous, okay? They are composed of thin walls so that the diffusion distance is very small, okay? We must also know that their membranes are completely moistened to dissolve the respiratory gases. This is how they are able to dissolve the carbon. They are able to dissolve in the oxygen that has come in and also dissolve the carbon dioxide so that they can put it out of the body. So we are going to conclude our lesson by also looking at the adaptations of the lungs. So at the start of the lesson, we looked at the adaptation of all the respiratory surfaces. Now that we have looked at our respiratory system, we are going to look shortly about the adaptation of the lungs. So what do you think, or what do you know are the adaptation of the lungs to gaseous exchange? What makes the lungs able to carry out gaseous exchange? Happy? Emanuela?
Madam,
Okay.
madam, I'm talking.
I think
Pardon?
Madam,
Yes, please.
okay. The first adaptation, they contain air sacs, which helps them to be able to carry out the gaseous exchange fully throughout the body.
That's very okay. You say they contain?
It contains air sacs.
Okay. What is so special about the air sacs? Are they many?
There are many, and also they are connected to the blood capillaries or vessels in the body, which enables
Jeremy?
them to carry out the
Okay, that's okay, Happy. Jeremy?
They have a large network of blood capillaries for easy gaseous exchange.
That's true. Irina? Irina? Maria Martha?
Lungs have a short diffusion distance. The walls of both the alveoli and capillaries are just 1 cell thick.
Okay, that's true. Pinto? Pinto? Israel?
The lungs are well ventilated, of which this enables a new supply of air which is constantly brought in.
Okay, that's true. Frida?
Yeah, these lungs, they have a large surface area, hence supporting gaseous exchange.
Frida, how are the lungs able to have a large surface area?
Because I'm seeing like those lungs, they are large.
Okay, we are going to look further into that. It's true they have a large surface area. Judith?
Teacher, to add on to that, I think they have a large surface area because they have numerous alveoli, which increase the surface area.
That's true. Do we have any other suggestions? Okay, so our first adaptation is that the lungs contain many tiny air sacs called alveoli, which increase the surface area for gaseous exchange. Now, when we are talking about adaptations, first of all, you must clearly describe what the adaptation is. That simply means that you're going to mention the structure and what is special about it. For our first adaptation, if you notice, our structure is the air sacs. What is special about them? They are many, and therefore they are able to increase the surface area for gaseous exchange. Okay? So we conclude by describing why this adaptation is useful. The many air sacs increase the surface area for gaseous exchange. Okay? So before I give you the other adaptations, would you like to phrase a few of your answers? Just like the first adaptation, would we like to give it a try? Any volunteers? Happy, would you like to give us an answer?
Yes, madam. I'm praising the one of large surface area. Madam,
Yes,
I
please.
go ahead. The lungs have a large surface area because they contain many ovuli that increases the rate of gaseous exchange.
Okay, that's true. Nora?
The lungs have a flexible rib cage, allowing expansion and contraction during breathing.
That is very correct, Nora. Lex, we've noticed that she has followed what I've just said. Maria, Martha?
The lungs have moist walls and gases dissolve in the moisture, helping them to pass across the gas exchange surface smoothly.
That is very correct. Do we have any other suggestions? Okay, so the walls of the alveoli and the capillaries are only 1 cell thick, minimizing the diffusion distance for gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide, okay? So that we are not seeing that the thin walls, which is what we are talking about here, we are not seeing that the thin walls, which is what we are talking about here, are able to reduce the distance which the gases are supposed to diffuse through, or what you may call the diffusion distance. Then each alveoli is surrounded by a dense network of capillaries, ensuring that oxygen is quickly transported into the bloodstream and carbon dioxide is removed. Okay? That is another adaptation of our lungs. We also know that the inner surfaces of the alveoli are moist. This enables gases to dissolve and facilitates their diffusion across the cell membranes, okay? Lastly, the lungs are elastic, just like we shared. They are also surrounded by a rib cage that is elastic, which enables them to expand and contract during breathing. This helps to draw in fresh air and to remove the stale air, okay? So that will mark the end of our lesson for today. If you have any questions, please raise them. If there are none, I think we can call it a day. Yes, Kaylee?
Teacher, I'm asking which part moistens, cleans, and what? Which part moistens and cleans air?
So the air is cleaned right when it has just gotten into our bodies. So if the air goes through the nose, that is where it's going to be moistened and cleaned from, right? This
Yes.
cleaning continues
Yes.
This cleaning mainly happens in the nose, but it also continues in the trachea because we saw that the trachea has cilia that are and mucus that are also able to trap the dust. So in the case that you breathe through the mouth, your
Yes.
mucus in the trachea will be the one that will collect the dust. So the cleaning mainly happens in the nose and the trachea. Is that okay?
Yes. Thank you, teacher.
You're welcome. Emanuela?
Madam,
Yes, please.
on the part where someone say that is it the lungs are ventilated, are well ventilated, I don't understand that part.
Now, you see that we normally say that our houses are very well ventilated, right?
Yes.
Ventilated simply means that air can easily come in and go out. Now, for the lungs, when we say that our lungs are well ventilated, we notice that before we get to the lungs, we have the nose, the trachea that does not collapse, the bronchi that do not collapse, and the very many bronchus that transport air into the air sacs of the lungs, okay? So that is what we are calling very well ventilated. They are able to get air to the maximum. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you, teacher.
You're welcome. Martha? Martha NK? Okay, since Martha doesn't seem to want to unmute, Henry?
Okay, teacher, mine is just an inquiry. You said the mucus is inside the trachea. So I wanted to know how it is released off the body.
Okay. So the mucus inside the trachea is normally beaten by the cilia, okay? As the cilia move, they're able to beat that mucus and they move it towards our nose so that we are able to release it, because with time it gets dirty and it accumulates and it cannot be stored in our bodies. That is why when you come in contact with so much dust, you normally get what we would like to call flu. Sometimes it's not flu, it's just our bodies releasing the excessive dust that we've given them to filter in a short span of time, okay? Henry?
Yes. Okay, thank you, teacher.
Okay. I'll take Mercy's question and we shall call it a lesson. Mercy?
Excuse me, teacher. Are you going to send the work?
Yes, the work will be sent to your different groups. Okay, may we have a volunteer to pray for us so that we can call it a lesson? Chitney?
Almighty Father, King of glory, I want to thank you for the lesson that you have given us in the Father, Jesus. It was by your grace and glory that you have given us the life. As we end the lesson, I pray that you will end with us. And when we started, you were there for us. I pray this in the mighty and ancient name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I pray. Amen.
Amen.